Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, team. How are we doing?
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Best day of the week. I had to get it before you, Brandy. I had to get it.
Hey, I paused knowing that one of you guys would finish the sentence for me.
Hey, Brandy's taking it from me, I think 2 weeks in a row now. So
trying
to catch up. I have to have some line, right? Maybe I'll come up with my own catchphrase. But you guys excited? I've been up since about 4 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm well caffeinated. I'm pumped. How excited are you guys for this episode?
Pretty excited. It feels like we have a celebrity on the show.
I think we do. I'm taking it like that. I'm getting excited. I'm getting pumped.
We've had a lot of big names in the short-term rental space specifically, but this is kind of transcends broader travel. So very, very excited and got a lot of questions to get to today.
Yes. So for all of our live viewers and repeat listeners, this is going to be a little bit longer than our normal 30 minutes, but we also have a really good line of questions and topics. So if you do have your own questions, topics in the live, we will get to them at the end if we have time. If not, we'll maybe ask Sam to come back in the future and we'll do another episode. But if not, at the end of the day, we got a good 40-minute lineup. And so before we welcome our special guest, Sam Shank, who was the co-founder and former CEO of HotelTonight, we have to give a big special thank you to our amazing sponsors over at TravelNet Solutions. And of course, Sojo. If you don't know about TravelNet, definitely need to check them out. They have exclusive offers for our listeners, and you can come meet me and my co-founder Chief Operating Officer? Yeah. COO. There we go. That's the title. At the next conference with TravelNet. And then, of course, Sojo will send any wine boxes to our listeners who are tempted to try out the wine. So that's always a good excuse to have a drink on a Monday. So without further ado, are you guys ready to meet and say hello to the one and only Sam Shank? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Good morning, Sam.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on, everyone.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for taking the time in an early West Coast morning for you.
Bright and early.
I like it.
Your very first live podcast too, right?
Absolutely right. I've done a lot of live TV and a lot of podcasts, but never the combo. So
it's
good to be here.
Nothing compares to live TV. So it's no pressure at all. But we do want to get into a lot today. We've got, from how you started to times through acquisition and all of that, and then what you see in the future of travel. But if you don't mind jumping right into it, I heard when you graduated college, you were an aspiring movie producer. How do you go from an aspiring movie producer to a hospitality tech icon?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a movie, like a big budget movie director, like James Cameron or Spielberg, and those were my idols. And got a job in Hollywood and sort of networked my way into working for Wes Craven on this movie that ended up being called Scream, that turned into a big hit. That was a lot of fun to work on. And I'm in the credits. Fun fact on that one.
All right.
But got a lot of laundry. I mailed a lot of boxes. But actually, just realized that Hollywood wasn't as entrepreneurial as I thought it was. So I came up then to Northern California because I also love technology and started working in the tech industry and realized pretty quickly that starting a company was going to scratch the same itch that I was looking to scratch with being a movie director. It's coming up with a product and a vision for bringing something to the market that people would love, building a team around that, having a compelling vision for that team and leading them to greatness. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to build the skills I need over the next 10 years or so to then be able to start a company. And then I started 2 companies in travel, combining my interest in technology with my interest in travel, that were not terribly successful. But then I learned a lot that then led to HotelTonight.
I was going to say, I heard in a similar kind of Michael situation, heard in another podcast that when you built Hotel Tonight, which apparently took 10 weeks, which is incredible. I would love to know how you built that so fast. But you were one of the first 3 bookings, or actually you were all 3 of your first 3 bookings. As a founder and builder of the company, what was it like to experience it on the traveler side? I'm very curious to know how many tweaks and notes did you take that you wanted to fix or change, or all the iterations of the app that you built?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very intense 10 weeks. It was kind of a necessity that we had to do that because we only had about 150 grand. That would lead to just a handful of months of runway to be able to prove this, to then be able to then go and raise some more money to keep going. And we had done a lot of prepping, but by the time we wrote the first line of code to when it was in the App Store was 10 weeks. And it was, of course, very intense, to say the least. But also, I look back on that as one of the greatest and happiest times of my life because we were building something and it was so fun and there was massive iteration. So yes, the first official 3 bookings were done by myself, and that was done on a video that we did with TechCrunch with Sarah Lacey and Paul Carr, where we walked around and booked a bunch of hotel rooms or 3 hotel rooms, I guess. And but before that, I had done probably 500 bookings to test the software and iterate and continue to make it better and improve it. But it was like pretty amazing to book the hotel room and then walk in and the reservation was there. That was I was like, wow, this actually works after all that hard work.
At the time, was it a lot of the integration work, or what was the biggest lift or challenge for you guys to start scaling it?
Yeah, and what attracted me to Hotel Tonight was, the hotel industry for sure was interesting, and boutique hotels. And what was really trailblazing, though, and interesting thus for me, was mobile commerce and trying to figure out mobile commerce. So the hardest pieces were the app and making that transactional. We were one of the first customers of Braintree, so using card on file and saved payment credentials. Getting the agreement set up with the credit card processor was really hard. Then getting the user interface right so that it was magical, that it was 3 taps, that it was under 10 seconds to do the transaction, to do the processing. We actually didn't do any integrations at all. And that's one of the shortcuts and why we were able to launch in 10 weeks. So we launched on the hotel side without an extranet. So we would call the hotels every day and say, hey, it's us again. Do you have any hotel rooms that you want to sell? What do you want to price them for? And then when we get a reservation, we had a fax system, electronic fax setup. So we tapped into that. That was actually the state of the art, and sometimes still is the state of the art for delivering a reservation to an independent hotel. We'd also call the hotel and say, hey, it's us. We have a reservation. And they're like, who are you? Is this a prank call? But if you watch that TechCrunch video, I don't know if it's still online or not, but if it is, then you'll see in one of the scenes, I walk into the hotel and the front desk is actually on the phone with my co-founder receiving the reservation. So I had to sort of explain how we're just validating that the reservation went through, but whatever. It all
Quick
worked.
on your feet.
Yeah, you're talking about a couple industries there that are notoriously kind of against change. Payment processing, certainly for one, but hotels, kind of, especially compared to short-term rentals, aren't usually as open. Did you find it difficult to convince them to work with you in the beginning?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's always hard selling selling into an industry that, isn't sort of known for not, embracing new things. We, though, crafted everything to make it hard for them to say no. So it was really incremental revenue for them. That was one. And then 2 is that we made it super simple. So again, we only asked for 2 pieces of information. The extranet, when we launched it, was 2 integers that we needed, 2 numbers that we needed every day. And we made the contract. Another thing we did is the contract used to, from the big OTAs, it was pages and pages, 25 pages. You have to get your lawyers involved. We made our 7 sentences. It basically just said, we're going to send you a reservation. You're going to pay us a cut and do it. Right. And so they appreciated that. And so we just came in and sort of the anti-OTA in how we positioned ourselves, and that was appreciated. And then we pitched, this was back in the day when apps were really novel and extra cool, and there were all the commercials for there's an app for that. And so we really pitched the exclusivity of that and said, we're only going to bring in a handful of hotels. We want the very best, and we've picked you. And that resonated as well. And we were able to get just incredible hotel partners, and very, very grateful for them taking a chance with us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also kind of in prep of this episode was listening to you talk about kind of the idea around HotelTonight, and not only building it in 10 weeks and going through all the iterations and being the first, 3 official bookings, but you talk about simplicity, and you mentioned it already a couple of times here with, making it super easy to book, 3 clicks, less than, 10 seconds. Where did you get the simplicity piece? Was it something that you just experienced in life that you're like, if I'm going to build something, I want it to be simple for myself, my team, the user, the client, all the above? Or was this kind of learning from the 2 businesses that you had launched previously to HotelTonight?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's something I've always gravitated towards. And I think that as I've talked to people, they say, well, Sam, you're very good at breaking down a problem and making it simple. And maybe that's just because otherwise it's hard for me to grok and remember and process myself. So, that's part of it. I think another part of it is my dad was an architect, and a contemporary architect. And so I grew up with a lot of great design around me, and the design was always very simple and clean lines and modern. And I think that influenced me on the aesthetic, but also just in sort of business concepts and problem solving, breaking things down into very simple pieces. And making products that are just simple and intuitive to use. And that is the type of product I like. So, you build for yourself, and then you hope that the world likes what you like. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I think that's where it ended up. Yeah.
You mentioned kind of playing off that exclusivity for your first early partners on the hotel side. Did that persist all the way through? I mean, I know you guys have some big box brands, but not really your core target market. How did that transform from early days until, mass adoption?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we wanted the exclusivity. We wanted, this idea of curation and not looking through a huge list and sorting and filtering. We didn't think that was the best, default experience on mobile for sure. And it was also out of necessity. I mean, we had one person, 2 people, I guess, signing hotels, co-founder, and then we hired one person very shortly thereafter. But we didn't have a team to go sign a lot of hotels. So we said, all right, we're going to turn this weakness into a strength. We're going to take this thing that people could call limited selection and turn it into curation and make it something that's magical, that's helpful, that's useful. And that led to us launching with only 3 cities. And we again sort of said, hey, this is you're one of the first cities, and then we expanded from there. And then also the handful of hotels that we had. It also focused the very limited demand that we had at the time on a handful of hotels. Now, the trick was that even with 3 hotels, and then we expanded, I think, to 6 hotels at a time, that wasn't enough in a major city for people to get the selection of location and price and amenities that they wanted. So we did expand over time, and we expanded in a couple different ways. We just added more hotels, and then in certain markets we had to add beyond independent hotels, because not to pick on Memphis, but a town like Memphis, there's some great boutique hotels, but not 20 of them. And so we would sign those, and then we would bring in and sort of backfill with some of the chain hotels and brands. And that seemed to work well. And then, another example is airports. At airports, there's no boutique hotels. And so it's important, though, when somebody misses their flight, this isn't the primary use case for HotelTonight, though it's a key use case. We wanted to be there for people. And then we would have certainly some chain and branded hotels there.
Yeah, I really like just kind of the scrappiness that you had, especially in the beginning. And I think that that's really kind of the fun part about being in a startup, is that you use kind of maybe your, weaknesses or your limitations to actually innovate and provide a better product. And then that ends up being a selling point. So I love that. And that really resonates with me and some of the experience that I've had, and I'm sure with a lot of our listeners in this industry. And so my question kind of revolves around, you at one point changed the booking window from 7 days to 100. And that is kind of a shift in the identity or like the core focus in the company. So what was behind that, that change, and what was the attitude in the company like? Were people receptive to that kind of change?
Yeah, it was all about listening to our customers. And we had, as a marketplace, there's two customers. One is guests and one are hosts, and our hotels rather. Host is from my Airbnb days. And and at the hotel side, they said, "Hey, you are great at selling our last minute inventory, and we're very appreciative for that. We also would like to sell more of our advanced inventory, especially on certain softer days, through you, and build a book of business there, and also sell more through you than we're selling through what turned into a duopoly during the time that from when we started HotelTonight to that point." And so we said, okay, how can we do this? And then how can we do this for our customers? Are they looking for this? And they were looking for this. There's times when last minute is the best way to go, or the necessity. There's other times when you want a little bit more space between the booking and the check-in. And it could be when there's more intense logistics. It could be when you need to send a package early on. It could be when you're with your family. It could be all these other reasons why you'd want to book in advance a particular hotel that you absolutely need. And so we built the plan around that. And it was I'd say a challenge internally to give people comfort that, hey, what our identity that we used to have, which was really constraining what we did, now is going to be expanded on the Tonight side. But what we do differently, the value, the speed, the convenience, the great support, the way that we treat our hotel partners with the utmost respect, all of those are going to be the same. And this is going to give us a chance to reach more people and be more useful to our hotels and to our guests. And so that messaging was something that we reiterated pretty significantly internally, and regularly internally. And then once we saw it starting to work, then the team felt very, very comfortable about it.
I love that. And I'm curious because going back into the simplicity thing and working with brands and independent hotels, you made the contract super simple. But when you moved into the bigger brands like Wynn and other name brands, did you have any pushback when it came to the shift and change of traveler behavior? Because I know, like, back in my hotel days, when I was a hotel manager, I really remember implementing HotelTonight and kind of being like, okay, well, like, I have X amount of inventory and I want to make sure that I'm getting the right guests and all this other stuff, right? As a brand, you're always super curious about and kind of like protective. Did you guys have a lot of pushback on that when it came to guest, traveler avatar or anything like that in regards to the bigger brands as you guys kind of move forward from independence?
In terms of the bigger hotels, I think we worked a lot with the individual franchisees and worked directly with them. And they operated very much like an independent hotel. Their flag was, the brand was different, but that wasn't an issue. I think that, and then we worked with the head offices. That just took a really long time to get through and to get through their process. So it wasn't so much pushback that we were doing anything inherently, different. Because we brought a lot of innovation, and we brought like an olive branch, as an OTA. We said we'd love to, how can we help? And so we came in with that, not how can we get the best economics here, which others might be sort of starting a negotiation with. So it was there were friendly conversations. I think the challenge was that they took a long time versus like the pace that we were used to, which is like, let's sign the contract this afternoon and get you selling tomorrow morning. So
call you every morning, ready to,
yeah, exactly,
ready to go.
Exactly.
I love that. The old startup adage of do things that don't scale, that you guys took that to heart. And Did you continue that on, or did you end up having?
Oh, no.
Okay.
It was just a roadmap thing. So, I mean, we had one developer. And so once we launched, then he started working on, the extranet. And then it was like, I don't know, a month later, 2 months later, something in that range. And I remember a co-founder, Jared, called our hotels, was like, hey, great news. We have an extranet. And they're like, how did you do it before?
Yeah, good question.
He realized very quickly he didn't need to brag about having an extranet. So.
Kind of a basic necessity, huh?
Right.
So let's fast forward a couple years. You guys got acquired by Airbnb in 2019. What made sense that Airbnb was where you were going to place HotelTonight versus one of the more traditional OTAs? Because it to me, as an outsider looking in, seems more akin to being owned by a Booking or an Expedia versus an Airbnb.
Yeah. Well, I think it was mostly a fit because strategically it made a lot of sense. And in terms of what we were going to bring and what Airbnb needed, they were the buyer, and so that had to be the most important thing. And what we brought was a deep understanding of the boutique and independent hotel business, and also a good book of business there, and a lot of relationships and contacts. And the idea and the sort of thesis behind the deal was to build out that boutique hotel inventory within Airbnb, to have a supplement to the great short-term rentals. And this is when short-term rental operators, I'm sure yourself, one night stays are not one night last minute stays. Yeah, you're all shaking your heads, right? Your heads no is but so that's not as much of a fit for short-term rental operators, and it's not great economically on a value side for guests because of the turnover costs and the cleaning fees. So, but for an independent hotel, it's like that's what they do, and that's what HotelTonight did. So, being able to supplement on the booking window, on the locations, on the type of amenities, and in a very complementary way, the short-term rental inventory made a lot of sense. And especially as boutique hotels became and were influenced by the best short-term rentals and vacation rentals with like better amenities and cooler, funkier vibes, and great places like the Hoxton that feel like you're almost staying in somewhere it's got a real sense of place. That Hoxton and Shoreditch in London doesn't look like anywhere else in the world. Can't say that about some of the branded hotels, for example. So it ended up being, a fit and a great strategy for growing Airbnb. And so we were then running the hotel vertical within Airbnb. So just getting back to why, we can talk about what happened, but the why is that, that made sense. It was a great opportunity for me and the team to run a division of hotels versus within a large travel company versus being a division of hotels within of many hotel divisions within a larger OTA. And then based in San Francisco, culturally very, very similar, offices just, really close. And then I'd known Brian actually since before HotelTonight, and he was part of the inspiration for HotelTonight actually. And so we stayed in touch, and I had deep respect for him and his co-founders and the executive team there. So I was looking forward to working with them, and all of those made it really make sense.
Yeah, when that happened, we were so excited as an operator. As an urban operator, our product is very much like apart hotel, style. And so we were so excited. We tried to put everything on HotelTonight, and it really just didn't work like with our model. We really tried so hard, but that was something we were really excited about because, part of the conversation that we've been having in the industry is this blending of hotels and STR, and all the lines are getting blurry. So, it's definitely something maybe we'll try again. Now that we have our, kind of a different setup in some of our buildings, but we were so excited when we saw that as like just a kind of a new and interesting way to reach, new customers.
Mm-hmm. I'm very curious because what was it like meeting Brian before HotelTonight and then kind of creating this business and the relationship that you got to form with him pre, entrepreneurial phase to then, hey, I'm maybe ready to sell or whatever the type of conversation you guys may have had. Maybe just for the sake of the listeners and for us, what was your relationship like with Brian, and how was it working with him and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, and we met. I reached out to him when it was just getting started. It was, just a couple hundred listings, probably maybe 1,000 listings. And we got coffee, and he shared his vision. I was running this other company and was talking called Dealbase, which was less successful than than Airbnb ended up being, or HotelTonight. And then I went and visited the Ralph Street apartment, and the energy there, the creativity, the sense of, we're going to change the world. It was just palpable. It was really amazing. I was blown away. And then I was like, all right, I looked at this deal-based company that I was running, which was profitable and, spitting off cash and doing some good things, but wasn't changing the world, wasn't exciting, wasn't bringing something to the world that people loved. And I said, I want to do something like that. And that led to me thinking about a bunch of different things and one of those was HotelTonight. So it was really a little bit of a kick in the butt, or an inspiration from that team and from Brian that led to me, then doing and the team doing HotelTonight. So then we stayed in touch. I mean, I did art in high school. Brian's an incredible artist. But I still, do some painting and drawing. And so we're both cut from the same cloth there of, design oriented, product first CEOs. And so we had a lot in common. We'd always enjoyed talking to each other, caught up every few years. And then, we talked about working together, off and on through that entire cycle. And then when we started thinking about combining in 2019, it just made a lot of sense then, and the timing was right.
So piggybacking on that, it's probably not too controversial to say that HotelTonight acquisition by Airbnb was their most successful acquisition they've made. They had made a lot of acquisitions in the past, and some had gotten folded up during COVID, some got folded up pre-COVID. But with you and the legacy of HotelTonight, one, how does it make you feel that you guys were probably, if not the best, had to be top 2 acquisitions that Airbnb's ever made? And then how do you feel about that legacy being carried on inside of Airbnb?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't part of the other acquisitions, but I do think that one of the things that made the HotelTonight acquisition successful is that we did a lot of diligence ahead of time on both sides. And then that led to a really strong integration plan. And I'd say that's the advice I'd give to anyone that's looking to merge or combine with another company is make sure it's really, really thought out. We are down to this person's going to do this role, and we don't have this, so this is how we're going to solve for that. And we thought all of this through, not just really high level. Oh, we're going to build the hotel category. It was a lot of detail and it all made sense. And when we had a question, we'd solve it. Of course, we couldn't solve everything, but we went with a very clear action plan and resources identified. And that's hard to do because you're also trying to close the deal, and you're trying to keep everything pointed in the right direction. So that said, I think that was one of the things that made the deal successful. I think that then, we were executing very well and the team was really just jamming. And then COVID hit 9 months in and we had to pause that initiative. And I think then the team, a lot of kudos to the HotelTonight team. They said, hey, what do you need? What do we need? How can we help? What does Airbnb need? And so we all started focusing on the other parts of Airbnb where we could be helpful. So that could have been revenue management or, account operations for enterprise accounts is where a lot of the team ended up lending a hand. And meanwhile, we kept HotelTonight running. It still is running, and I'm using it next week. And it's I don't know. I used it maybe six months ago. I've used it between them, but I hadn't used it for a while, and then I used it 6 months ago, and I was like, wow, that was really easy. This is still really good. So, kudos to the engineering team for what they built, and the resilience of that the product and the engineering behind it to continue to deliver a great experience, and then the team that's continuing to run it and add more integrations and add more hotels.
Yeah, it's nice to see that your legacy, your baby is still being looked after well. And, HotelTonight and this merger has been, obviously a great success story. But looking back at your career, I think some of the most interesting things happen with failures or mistakes. Is there anything that comes to mind with like big lessons that you learned that kind of changed the course of either the company or your career?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have enough time to go over all the mistakes that I made, but yeah,
Just one.
certainly the most instrumental, like difficult time at HotelTonight was the time we had to do a layoff. So this is when we got to running out of cash. Our burn was really high, and we had to make some pretty dramatic changes, and had to really focus the team from a growth mode and a growth mindset, growth at any cost, to, hey, we've got to be profitable here. We've got to grow responsibly and get to profitability. And so we had to do a bunch of different things, including a set of layoffs. And that was very, very difficult. We had to say goodbye to some really great people. And it really was my fault that we had gotten into that situation and that we had to do that. And there's no other way to look at it. But I took responsibility, and I continue to, and we had to do what was right for the company and our customers and the rest of the employees. And then refocusing, turning that really difficult time into a catalyzing event to say, hey, we're going to honor the people that we had to say goodbye to by executing incredibly well right now, getting to profitability, growing faster than we've grown before. And the team just, showed up and really rose to the occasion. And that the execution that then happened over the next 6 months where we got to profitability was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's almost as good as that first 10 weeks. But there was a ton of creativity. There was a ton of focus. It was very clarifying to say, we're going to focus on profitability now. People would have a good idea. I was like, well, what's the EBITDA? What's the profitability characteristic of that?
Yeah,
And,
I find that
it was amazing, an amazing time, and kudos to the team for what they did.
Yeah, I find that those really difficult decisions, choosing to lay off a big portion of the company, it makes you never want to make those mistakes again and have to go through it. Like the pain point is very high. So I think that that's also like a big motivator of like, okay, how did we get in this situation? And, what can we do to, at all costs, to avoid this going down the road?
Yeah. And I think that as a leader, you can do one layoff and explain that, and then what are we going to do to get to a place where we're going to be ongoing successful. Then if you do another layoff though, then people start looking for other jobs, and the trust is really lost. So we worked very hard to make sure that was a one-time event, and we had what we needed to get to profitability.
Yeah, that's incredibly challenging, especially profitability when raising capital or taking capital from investors. And you've seen this industry is very entrepreneurial, and a lot of people, maybe not even in this industry, but anyone that hears that you're an entrepreneur, that you built a business, thinks it's very linear, right? Like, okay, we started this company 2 to 3, however many years later, right? There's either very profitable and cash flowing, or they get acquired for a big chunk of change. Can you maybe, for just a lot, again, I know a lot of our listeners who are tuning in now and listening to the episode are entrepreneurs or CEOs and have to make the hard decisions. If you could describe entrepreneurship in your own definition and term, how would you describe that?
Oh, I mean, it's a ton of ups and downs, and it's like it's not just month to month; it's day to day, it's hour to hour. That you're getting good news, then bad news, then something changes in a positive direction, but then you learn that it wasn't as positive as you thought. I mean, it is a roller coaster ride. You all know all of this, and that said, it's what I loved about running the company was the change in elevation and the change, that excitement as well. So sometimes I would be doing big press things, or be recruiting somebody for the executive team, and Other times I'd be, dealing with HR crisis or dealing with, a facility issue, or just helping out on copy for a press release. So I loved that change in elevation all the time, going from strategy to detailed execution and back and forth, and that's throughout the day. And so that's another part of entrepreneurship that I think is, for me, it was fulfilling, and others are going to find, that that's the case. And that, I think, when you see, some of the iconic entrepreneurs, you think, oh, well, they are just doing really high level thinking and pointing fingers, and somebody comes in and they say, yes, ship it. And it is a lot more grinding details out. It is long meetings. It is suffering the details. And that also is what makes it fun, is to have that chance, and have that privilege to bring something great to customers. And that's why I like online travel and the travel industry, is that you're helping people have the best week of their year, maybe the week of their life. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. It's also a lot of hard work and commitment that you need to make, that I need to make as an entrepreneur, to make sure that that is as good as it possibly can be.
So I loved that. I mean, the roller coaster ride as a startup founder is very, very real, and it moves so fast too. But in terms of the pinnacle heights, can you describe what the IPO day at Airbnb was like? I've heard some fantastic stories of Airbnb employees, whether they were still currently there or had left previously. But can you share what the buzz was like inside the building?
Yeah, well, it was empty at the time, because of COVID. But I mean, talk about a roller coaster year, and I mean, this is all kudos to Brian and the executive team. But we were, it's pretty well known that the business was bleeding a lot of cash during COVID, and had to raise emergency financing. It wasn't clear what was going to happen. And then to turn the business around and IPO by the end of the year and have the biggest tech IPO of the year, that's an incredible rebound. Talk about a roller coaster ride. I mean, that's like, going to the moon and back. So what Brian went through and what the executive team went through, it is really impressive what they were able to do. I think the mood on Slack was, of course, fantastic and exciting. And I felt just, I was very happy for the team and for our investors, who had trusted in me and trusted in our decision to sell to Airbnb, and it's known that it was part for stock. So a lot of it was betting on the future of Airbnb, and I made a very strong case that I thought that the short-term rental industry was bigger than people were giving credit to, and that Airbnb was, well, some people thought fully valued, I thought was undervalued. So it was very gratifying for me that investors were able to get the returns that they were able to, because they had trusted in me and the team along the way. So being able to see them be rewarded for that bet was very, that made me the happiest, I think.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Brian and about that day, and he was like, it was just on Zoom and then it was over. And I like how anticlimactic, it's usually this big day where you get to ring the bell. And that must have been kind of a surreal experience to just be on a Zoom call and then you're a public company.
Yeah, it was actually the last conversation I had with Brian before we sold. I was like, hey, we talked through a number of things. And I said, hey, one last thing is, when the IPO happens, I just want to be in New York with you all. And I want to, even if I'm not on the executive team, I just want to be there for it, and be, in New York and around it. And he said, yeah, sure. Okay, let's do that. And of course, then, it didn't happen. So I'm still waiting for the IPO day for something I'm doing. So that'll happen later.
Yeah.
The bucket list item it remains unchecked.
I love it. Well, I'm curious, we got introduced through the one and only Steve Davis over at Operto. I have to give him the plug and a shameless shout out for one, being probably our most repeated guest that we've had on the podcast. He definitely gets his spotlight, but well deserved, because I think he's awesome. He's super forward thinking, and I love what they're building with Operto as a customer of Operto as well. But I'm curious, what made you join the advisory board, or not even the advisory board, the board of Operto? How did that all come about, and what made you want to, after going through such a, again, roller coaster ride of being a founder to then through Airbnb's IPO, what made you want to dabble back into the industry a little bit more?
Well, I love the industry, and I want to stay connected to the industry, and this was one way to do it, without starting a company again. And I actually do, a fair amount of sort of informal advising, some, formal advising too, and a fair amount of angel investing. And I just love being around other entrepreneurs and sharing whatever wisdom I can and supporting them and encouraging them. And so that area of for me is then allows me then to stay in touch with travel. So and I met Operto through Darren Houston. We'd known each other when he was at Booking, and we were frenemies a bit, all right. And now it's nice to be on the same side of the table. And I went up there and was really impressed with the team and the vision and the execution for all of the things that happen after the booking through the end of the stay. I mean, there's so much room there for innovation. And I think that I heard it in another one of your podcasts that that the short-term rental industry has innovated much more than the hotel industry, which is, I think, very true in terms of automation, in terms of providing technology solutions to help scale, as well as deliver a magical solution. We tried some of this at HotelTonight. Actually, we had an express check-in product that hotels loved. It didn't scale very well. When we did the layoffs, we had to stop that and that whole area of innovation within HotelTonight. But I've thought about it for a long time, and I've continued to wonder why some of the things that are now pretty standard within short-term rentals are not available within hotels. But also then just within short-term rentals, there's so much more that can be done. And Operto is a company that's really like leading the way there, and it's just been a blast to work with them.
Yeah, you actually, in a 2016 interview, I think it was with the Recode Decode, you actually described the Operto business as some avenue of shakeup that needed to happen in the space. So it was cool to see how that came full circle and got you over with our dear friends, with Steve and team over at Operto.
Yeah, last time I was in Vancouver, I used their product at the hotel I was staying at for the keyless entry, for just using the phone to open the door and access the elevators. And it was magical. And like, to not have to worry about carrying a key around. It sounds like a minor thing, but once you start doing it, it's like, it's like car keys. It's like, it'd be much better not to have to carry around car keys. It's one less thing to think about. And it's not too far away that nobody's going to have wallets anymore, and it's all going to be on the phone. So this is one more thing that gets replaced, and it's that's one of the many things that Operto does. And that one really resonated with me as a hotel guy.
Well, I was going to say, from the hotel world, again, probably not the most tech forward until companies like Operto, and kind of the whole ecosystem, I think, has kind of built around what Airbnb has done in short-term rentals and all this other stuff. But we've mentioned a couple times on this podcast, we've listened to other shows that you've been on. We've been doing our research to make sure like we knew how to frame a lot of these questions and kind of come in well educated. And you get to be on stage a lot more than probably what most people would do in their entrepreneurial career and journey and all the above. So I'm curious, what's one thing that you're really excited about in the sense of what's next in hospitality, and then kind of maybe a topic that you don't get to talk about enough, or that you're really passionate and excited about within the industry that you would love to maybe share the last few minutes of on this episode?
Well, I don't get to talk about much anymore. So I'm just happy to be on here and talking with you all. But something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and that I'm thinking about, what are the entrepreneurial avenues around it, is the coming change that is going, the second order changes that are going to be brought on by autonomous vehicle fleets, self-driving cars, and then also even autonomous drones for taking people around. And it sounds very far-fetched. There's a lot of people that are saying it's not going to happen that soon. The self-driving within Tesla and the beta, I mess around with it in my car, and it is getting better and better, and remarkably better over like the past few months and years. And I'm also involved with this company called Lift Aircraft, which is in Austin, Texas, and they have flying drones that carry people around, and it's happening now. So, all right, play that out a few years. It's going to be less than 20, maybe more than 3, more than 5. I don't know, but what are the implications of that for how cities are designed, how real estate is organized, and how people access their homes, and entertainment, and then also what are the implications for the travel industry? So you have a situation, for example, where you could have a city center and then a great vacation destination that, because of a mountain pass, it takes 6 hours to drive to. But with a drone, with line of sight, it might take 15 minutes. So does that all of a sudden change, the way people vacation? Does that change the way people are entertained? Do they, go there every night? Do they go there on weekends? Do they go there for weekend getaways? And it opens up the opportunity for, more remote type of places to suddenly become mainstream. So I think real estate values could change pretty remarkably. And the types of trips we do could be way more frequent and way more exotic because of the lowered cost of transportation, lowered cost in terms of dollars, and also in terms of time.
Yeah, I love that idea that there's going to be all these kind of butterfly knock-on effects of, in the travel industry and beyond, and kind of reshaping how we build our cities and our communities. I love that. And I also just love the excitement. Like, I think that's one of my favorite parts about our industry is that everyone we talk to, yourself included, obviously, just gets so excited about all the possibilities. And I think that's one of the things that I know we all love about being in this industry is that there's innovation, there's excitement, there's a lot of passion, and there's so much room for improvement, as we move forward. So it's great to hear your story and how that you're still excited about this industry, even after being in it for so long.
I love this industry, and also as a customer, I'm going to be a big customer for a long time. So it is a great industry, and it's been just a real privilege to be part of it. And thanks for having me share what I know within it. So
one last question, and this is a yes or no, but have you been on that flying drone before?
Not yet, but I'm planning a trip.
Okay.
That's
So
very
they
cool.
are actually taking humans, test pilots, I guess.
They're taking, I don't know the exact status of it, but they're taking customers, and they fly over a lake because the FAA rules are different for flying over water. And the idea is that it's sort of for corporate outings or bachelor parties, that you can take a group up, and then you have these sort of competitive races, and you get to fly around a course.
That sounds
And
awesome.
it sounds like a blast. And so, I can't wait to do it.
Maybe we can do a GMH, corporate retreat there.
Live from a drone.
Live from a drone.
Wonderful.
That's
well,
awesome.
Sam, really appreciate you taking the time today. Covered a lot, and I know the 10-year overnight success. It's funny how people think it all happens so fast, but there's the roller coaster ride, like you mentioned. We're all on it. We all see it day to day. There's light at the end of the tunnel with folks like you who've had fantastic paths and journeys that we can all kind of mirror and mimic. So thanks again for joining us and sharing some knowledge.
Yeah, it's
great
been
to be
great.
here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, for all of our listeners, sorry we didn't get to any questions, but again, a good excuse to reach out to Sam to have him on in the future. Sam, again, thank you so much. And for everyone tuning in, we'll see you guys again next week.